If you like our video, click the subscribe button to subscribe to our channel and get easy access to new content. To see our full suite of ad-free video courses and training materials, visit us at teachucomp.com. After setting the correct white balance for a camera raw image, you can then make additional tonal adjustments to it if needed. To do this, click the Edit button in the toolbar at the right side of the Camera Raw dialog box if needed. Then click the Basic tab in the Edit panel that appears to the left of the toolbar to expand that section if needed. Then use the sliders shown below the white balance section to change the basic adjustment settings. Note that the specific sliders shown in this section depend on the process you chose from the Process dropdown on the Calibration tab. To apply automatic adjustments, click the Auto button at the top of the Edit panel. To undo the automatic adjustments, click the Auto button again. To apply a black and white treatment, click the B and W button at the top of the Edit panel. Doing this applies the Adobe monochrome profile to the image. To remove the black and white treatment, click the B and W button again. To manually adjust the exposure for the selected camera raw image, click and drag the exposure slider or enter a value into the adjacent field. This adjusts the brightness or darkness of the image. Move the slider to the left to darken the image, or move the slider to the right to brighten it. The values shown in the adjacent field are equivalent to f-stops. So, a setting of +1 is equivalent to widening the camera aperture by 1 f-stop. Likewise, a value of -1 is equivalent to reducing the aperture by 1 f-stop. Alternatively, to use this slider to preview where highlights are clipped in an image, hold down the Alt key on your keyboard, or the Option key for Macs, when dragging the exposure slider, to show clipped regions as colored areas in the image. The color indicates areas clipped in only one or two color channels. Non-clipped areas appear black. Move the slider until the non-specular highlights, meaning highlights not from light or reflected light, are completely clipped. Then slightly reverse the adjustment you made. To manually adjust the contrast of a camera raw image, use the Contrast slider. Generally, you should only adjust the contrast of an image after adjusting its exposure, shadow, and brightness. You can slide the slider to the left to decrease the values, resulting in less mid-tone contrast in the image. You can slide the slider to the right to increase the values, resulting in increased mid-tone contrast in the image. You can also enter values into the adjacent field for the slider if preferred. If using Process version 2 or version 1, you will see a recovery slider, which is used in older processes to try to recover details and clipped highlights in an image. This can help recover image details and highlights where one or two color channels have been clipped to white. Likewise, the Fill Light slider can help recover details from shadows without brightening blacks in the image in the older process versions. These older processes also include a blacks and brightness slider. The black slider specifies which input levels are mapped to black in the final image. Increasing this value, or sliding the slider to the right, expands the areas mapped to black. The brightness slider adjusts the brightness of the image. It increases image brightness when you move the slider to the right. If using Process version 3 or higher, the Highlights and Shadows sliders appear instead of the Recovery and Fill Light sliders. The Highlight slider recovers details in overexposed highlight areas of the image. The Shadows slider recovers details in underexposed shadow areas in the image. Similarly, in the version 3 or newer processes, the Whites and Black sliders appear instead of the Blacks and Brightness sliders. The Whites slider adjusts the highlights in an image, and the Black slider adjusts the shadows in an image. All process versions contain the clarity, vibrance, and saturation sliders at the bottom of the basic settings in the Edit panel. The clarity slider adjusts the sharpness of edges in an image. This can restore detail and sharpness other tonal adjustments may remove. The vibrance slider adjusts the saturation so clipping is minimized as colors approach full saturation. It does this by changing the saturation of all lower saturated colors without changing the higher saturated colors as much. This also helps prevent skin tones from becoming oversaturated. The saturation slider adjusts the saturation levels of color in the image from pure monochrome (-100) to double saturation (+100). To temporarily hide all the white balance and basic adjustments in the preview image after making changes to these settings, click and hold down the eye icon in the upper right corner of the Basic tab within the Edit panel. This temporarily hides the changes in the preview image while you hold down on this icon so you can see the changes to the Camera Raw preview image. Simply release the mouse button to restore the visibility of the changes. Remember to click the subscribe button to see more of our videos. Get ad-free courses at teachucomp.com.